Every episode of Gold Rush carries a weight that most TV shows never come close to. If you are back here, you feel that weight too. Welcome back. Tony Beets is on a warpath. That is the energy at the center of Gold Rush Season 16, Episode 17. Titled Rick's Mess, and Tony on a warpath means 24-hour shifts at Paradise Hill, zero tolerance for slow progress. And an entire operation running at the limit of what the equipment and crew can physically sustain. But Tony is not the only story in this episode. Rick Ness has been shaken by what he found at the very bottom of Valhalla, and Parker Schnabel is making a significant move at the Golden Mile that speaks directly to where his operation is headed for the rest of the season. 3 storylines running hot. Here's exactly what happens in all of them. Gold Rush has always been a show about pressure. The pressure of a short operational season, of costs that never go down no matter how tight the margins already are, of ground that rarely delivers exactly what the preseason models predicted, and weather that has never once in the history of this show cared about a miner's target or their timeline. But Season 16 has been running at a particular intensity, even by the standards of this series. And Episode 17 is the episode where the pressure being applied across every major operation in the Klondike begins to produce results. Surprising results, costly results, and in Rick Ness's case, the kind of result that forces a miner to stop, turn the equipment around, and revisit a significant section of the season from a better informed and more honest starting point. Rick Ness and the crew at Valhalla have been grinding through a difficult and inconsistent season. The pay layers have shifted in ways that have made the day-to-day target numbers hard to hit reliably, and the accumulating gap between where Rick needs his seasonal total to be and where it actually sits has been a steady and visible source of pressure on the whole operation. But what Rick found at the bottom of Valhalla, at the bedrock itself, where the final accounting of a placer claim always ultimately takes place, changes the conversation in a direction the team was not prepared for. The bedrock is telling a different story than the one the surface layers had been suggesting. A better story. A more concentrated story. And that story is worth going back for. Even if going back costs more than Rick can comfortably spare right now, he is tearing back 3 days of work. 3 days. In a Gold Rush season operating under the pressure of a closing window and a target that has been looking further away than Rick would like for most of the year, 3 days is not a small number. It is a meaningful and irreplaceable slice of operational time. And spending it in reverse, undoing work already done, going back through ground already processed, requires real confidence in what the bedrock showed you. Rick has that confidence. The crew can see it in how he talks about the find and how quickly he commits to the plan. The equipment moves. The operation reverses. And Valhalla, which has been fighting Rick all season long, is about to get a second and better informed pass from a crew that now knows exactly where to look and exactly why it matters to their season. Rick has spent his entire Gold Rush career developing the instinct that is driving this decision. He did not build an operation at Valhalla by ignoring what the ground tells him when it decides to be honest with him. He built it by reading the signals carefully, by taking calculated risks when the evidence justified them, and by understanding that the Klondike will occasionally offer you a piece of information that changes everything, and that the only wrong response to that moment is to keep walking past it. This is one of those moments. The original plan said keep the operation moving forward. The bedrock said stop, come back, look at this more carefully. And Rick Ness, who has been working difficult ground in the Yukon long enough to know the difference between a distraction and a genuine discovery, is choosing to listen to what the bedrock is telling him. Rick's season is not over. But it is standing at a crossroads that Episode 17 defines with sharp and uncomfortable clarity. If the bedrock pays the way the find indicates it should, Rick gets a real path back toward 1,800 ounces. And the difficult middle section of Season 16 becomes a story about resilience and sharp instinct. If it does not, if the concentration does not hold, if the signal turns out to be isolated rather than structural, then Rick will have invested 3 days he cannot recover in a lead that did not extend far enough to change his season. He understands this calculation. His crew understands it. And they are making the bet anyway, because the alternative is walking away from something that looked real and later finding out it was. Across the Klondike, Tony Beets is bearing down on his number. Tony's goal this season is 6,500 ounces. And that target has functioned as the operational spine of Paradise Hill from the first day of the season. Every shift scheduled, every decision about where to concentrate the dig, every judgment call about when to push, harder versus when to pull back and service the equipment. All of it has been made against the framework of what 6,500 ounces requires from the operation on a daily and weekly basis. Tony Beets is not a man who sets goals he does not intend to hit, and he is not a man who adjusts his ambitions when the season gets difficult. He is a man who builds his operation around the number, drives it at the number every single shift, and expects the number to be there at the end of the season if the work was done correctly and the operation was run the way he expects it to be run. Episode 17 finds Tony in a mode that anyone who has followed his career on this show will recognize immediately. He is not comfortable. He is not satisfied with the pace of progress. He is applying the specific focus pressure that Tony Beets applies when he looks at the calendar, looks at the totals, and concludes that the gap between where he is and where he needs to be requires a different gear. The conversations at Paradise Hill carry real edge. The decisions have real consequences. And Tony, who has been running gold operations in the Klondike for longer than most people in his industry have been professionals, is not running on habit. He is running on a clear-eyed assessment of exactly what this season needs from him in the time that remains. And he is not willing to accept anything less than everything the operation can give. 6,500 ounces is reachable. Tony Beets does not commit to targets that are not reachable. But the distance between reachable and reach is where the real work happens. And in episode 17, that work is visible in everything Tony does, in the pace he sets, in the calls he makes under pressure, in the standard he holds the operation to across every shift. The season is running. The plan needs to keep running with it, without interruption and without excuse. At the golden mile, Parker Schnabel is making a move that speaks directly to the health of his operation and the depth of confidence he has built in the people working around him. Brennan has been part of the Parker organization long enough to have absorbed how it operates, how it reads ground, how it makes decisions when the pressure is high, how it balances speed against precision in the specific context of a Klondike placer operation running at the scale the Golden Mile now occupies. In episode 17, Parker formalizes the trust that has been building between them by giving Brennan something significant: full operational control of the eastern bench section. This is not a supervised trial. It is a real job with real authority and real impact on Parker's seasonal numbers. Handed to Brennan because Parker has watched him closely and concluded that he is ready for exactly this kind of responsibility. The eastern bench at the Golden Mile demands the same quality of daily decision-making as any other section of that operation: where to push, how to read the pay as it shifts, how to respond when the ground does not behave the way the morning plan anticipated. Parker will be running his own sections and making his own calls, operating on the assumption that Brennan has the eastern bench handled. That assumption is going to be either validated or it is going to cost Parker ounces in a season where every operation is already under pressure. Brennan knows this. Parker knows this. And the assignment stands because Parker does not extend this kind of trust lightly. And Brennan has earned it. 3 storylines running simultaneously across the Klondike with the season closing in from every direction. Rick Ness at Valhalla, 3 days back in the ground with 1,800 ounces still within reach, if the bedrock delivers what the initial find promised. Tony Beets at Paradise Hill, pressing every available advantage towards 6,500 ounces with the focus intensity of a man who does not accept shortfalls after committing publicly to a number. Parker Schnabel at the Golden Mile, expanding his operation and developing his people with the quiet confidence of someone building something. Designed to last beyond any single season. Gold Rush Season. 16 episode 17 is called Rick's Mess, but the mess Rick found at the bottom of Valhalla might be the most valuable mess he has ever made. The bedrock is talking. The season is running out. And every single operation in the Klondike, Rick at Valhalla, Tony at Paradise Hill, Parker at the Golden Mile, has what it needs to bring this season all the way home.